So picture this if you can. The absolute stuff of nightmares made real, of course, yeah. But completely stripped of its skin, you can see every muscle, every vein just exposed.
Grim.
Totally grim. And then fused onto its back, there's a human torso. No legs, just this torso. And its arms are so long they drag on the ground.
It's an incredibly potent image. This fusion is the Nuckelavee, and yeah, it's whispered about as probably the foulest, nastiest demon in Scotland's Northern Isles.
Truly unsettling.
And for this deep dive, we've managed to pull together quite a collection of sources. Fascinating stuff, though pretty disturbing, obviously. We're using Wikipedia, the Myth and Folklore Wiki. Folklore Scotland has some great bits, and then various other, texts and pasted bits covering etymology, fighting it theoretically, all that.
Right, and our mission today, really, for you listening in, is to sort of unpack this monster from Orcadian folklore. We want to get into its terrifying features, look at where the legend might have come from, find its maybe surprising weaknesses, and just understand the sheer dread it caused.
Yeah, there are definitely some aha moments coming up, especially when we get into the weird biology of it all.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe just quickly before we really jump into the pronunciation, how to say it.
Good point.
Based on one text, it's generally given as Nuckelavee. So Nuhkuluve.
Nuhkuluve.
Got it.
Yeah.
And maybe best not to chant it 3 times near the sea at midnight. Just saying. Probably wise advice. Okay, so the creature itself, let's describe it. The visuals across the sources, they're just consistently awful. This skinless horse thing keeps coming up. That raw look is just deeply, deeply unsettling. And then the human torso rider, no legs, arms dragging. It's just wrong.
It really is. And what's interesting is the slight variations you see, especially with the head or heads.
Right.
Some stories, like the famous one about Thomas that Walter Trail Dennison recorded, they talk about 2 heads. One's a horse head, huge mouth, really foul breath, single red eye, burning red. And alongside it, a human-like head, also with a big mouth, sometimes described as being like a pig's snout. Okay, so double the horror.
Pretty much. But then other sources just mention one head, but again, usually with that single fiery red eye. Oh, and we can't forget the fins.
Fins on the horse leg.
Yeah, fins on the horse legs, clearly marking it as something from the sea, even when it's on land.
That really drives home the marine connection, and that skinless detail. It's just so visceral, isn't it? Black blood, yellow veins, muscles showing, just repulsive.
It is, but the threat, it's not just visual, is it?
No, not at all. Its breath is meant to be toxic, like it can wither crops, make livestock sick. It got blamed for droughts, epidemics, all sorts.
Exactly. And that link to failed crops and disease, it really lifts the Nuckelavee beyond just a monster. It becomes this agent of mass suffering, like you said, a powerful symbol for those unpredictable things that could just devastate island life back then.
Yeah.
The sources also mention it hangs around beaches a lot, but weirdly, it doesn't like coming ashore if it's raining.
Huh. Okay, hold that thought about rain. But first, how did people come up with something this terrifying? What about the name Nuckelavee?
Right, the etymology. It looks like Nuckelavee is probably an anglicized version of an Orcadian word, Nuckelavee.
Nuckelavee.
Yeah, according to Dennison, again, that basically means devil of the sea.
Okay, direct. I like it.
Fits the bill, doesn't it? And interestingly, over in Shetland, there's a similar creature called the Muckelavee, also described as a, quote, nasty sea troll or sea devil.
So related ideas across the islands.
Seems like it. And the linguistic links are quite suggestive. Samuel Hibbert, who was writing a bit earlier, he suggested the Nuck part might connect to Nick.
As in Old Nick, the devil.
That's the idea. And possibly even to the Latin word nicere.
Which means?
To kill. So right away you're tying it to evil, the devil, death itself.
Wow. Okay, so origins-wise, what are we thinking? It sounds like a mix.
It really does seem like a blend, yeah. You've got this strong Norse influence in Orkney's culture, right? Mix that with older Celtic ideas about, nasty water spirits, water horses, kelpies, that sort of thing.
And you get the Nuckelavee?
Potentially. This unique, horrifying maritime menace. And it makes a lot of sense, really. For ancient islanders facing things they couldn't explain, storms, crop failures, disease, you can see how they might create or latch onto such a terrifying figure to explain it all.
Yeah, absolutely. For people living so close to the edge, so dependent on the sea and the land.
Exactly. A creature that could mess with both. Bring seed disasters and ruin the harvest. That would inspire some serious fear. You'd need a powerful story for that.
Okay, so it's terrifying, possibly explains ancient disasters.
Yeah.
But is there any good news? Like if you hypothetically ran into one, you mentioned weaknesses.
Ah, yes. the glimmer of hope, maybe. It turns out this devil of the sea really, really dislikes one thing in particular.
What's that?
Fresh water.
Fresh water, like from a tap.
Well, maybe not a tap back then. But yeah, running fresh water. Rivers, streams, apparently even puddles could act as a barrier.
Seriously, puddles.
That's what the sources suggest.
Mm.
There's that story of Thomas. Again, he supposedly got away by splashing the Nuckelavee with water from a loch. Now, loch water isn't exactly running fresh water, but maybe the shock, the fresh-ish water splash, was enough to distract it, long enough for him to leg it across a channel of running fresh water to safety.
So a quick splash from a puddle could actually save your life. That's kind of mundane for such a supernatural horror.
It is surprisingly practical, isn't it? And there's more. Its activity seems limited by the seasons, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's said to be most active, most dangerous.
Yeah.
Outside of the summer months. During summer, apparently, it's kept in check, confined somehow by the Myther of the sea.
The Myther of the sea. Who's that?
An ancient Orcadian sea spirit, kind of a personification of the sea itself.
Yeah.
Powerful, older figure.
So a sort of cosmic balance. Even the worst demons have someone keeping an eye on them.
Seems to be the idea in this folklore, yeah. And remember you mentioned rain earlier.
Right. It doesn't like coming ashore in the rain.
Exactly. Which is, of course, another form of fresh water. Fits the pattern. And there's also this interesting little note that wind might deter it, too.
Wind.
Yeah, suggesting maybe it prefers calm, still conditions for its rampages. Less splashing sea spray, maybe. Less rain.
Interesting. Okay, so it's clear this wasn't just some spooky story told around the fire. It genuinely affected people's lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
The fear was palpable.
Yeah.
Islanders apparently wouldn't even say its name, Nuckelavee, without immediately saying a prayer afterwards.
Wow. That tells you everything, doesn't it? The level of pure dread.
It really does. And there's a fascinating connection to the kelp industry.
Kelp. As in seaweed.
Yeah. Burning seaweed to produce kelp ash for industry, that became a big thing in Orkney, especially around the 18th century. But the belief grew that the smoke, this thick, acrid smoke from the kelp fires, enraged the Nuckelavee.
Seriously, so their economy was ticking off the local sea devil.
That was the fear. They thought the smoke provoked it, causing it to unleash plagues, kill livestock. There's even a specific mention of a horse disease called mortashine on the island of Stronsay being blamed on it, and just generally blight the land and crops.
Man, talk about a double-edged sword. Trying to make a living actually risks summoning this plague bringer.
Exactly. It paints a picture of a community constantly feeling under threat, where even progress or industry could invite supernatural retaliation. It really was seen as this harbinger of all kinds of awful things: sickness, drought, famine. One source sums it up perfectly: a personification of plague.
A personification of plague. Chilling. Okay, let's get into the really weird stuff now. The biological profile, as our notes call it.
Right, this is where it gets quite speculative, but it's based on pulling together the descriptions. The whole skinless thing, anatomically, it's bizarre. Does that make it vulnerable? Or is it some kind of awful, unnatural resilience? We don't know.
And the two parts, the horse and the human torso rider. Those long arms. One text even suggested it might move almost like a spider.
Yeah, that was one interpretation of the dragging arms and posture. A truly creepy image. And that toxic breath.
Thinking of it as a mobile ecological toxin is horrifyingly apt. It's not just attacking people, it's poisoning the land itself.
Precisely. And the fiery eye, or eyes, could that imply some kind of supernatural sight? Seeing fear, seeing souls, who knows? Adds another layer of menace.
Definitely. So this all leads to the big question. How on earth would you even think about fighting this thing? Or, more realistically, surviving it?
Yes, survival is definitely the key word of the sources. Direct combat. Probably a terrible idea. It's described as fast, relentless, and then there's that toxic breath. You'd need some kind of protection just to get close.
Right. So number one tactic seems to be use the weakness, fresh water.
Absolutely. Your primary shield. Lure it towards a stream, escape across a river, splash it, maybe even try to trap it between water bodies or douse it somehow.
Okay. And wind, maybe, if it prefers calm?
Possibly. Less certain, but mentioned. And then you get into the more folkloric defenses.
Salt, iron, things like that.
Exactly. Salt, cold iron, rowan wood classic protections in Celtic and Norse folklore. Also things like protective runes, maybe blessed weapons, or items linked to potentially friendly water deities.
So a mix of practical and supernatural defenses.
It seems that way. The fresh water feels almost like a natural law it has to obey, while the salt and runes point to a deeper, maybe spiritual vulnerability. Some think it might have an aversion to purity or life force itself, holy water, sacred ground, that sort of thing.
And if you were really desperate, any offensive strategies mentioned besides just running away or splashing?
Well, again, very speculative. The idea of trying to sever the rider from the horse part comes up.
Ooh, grisly.
If they function as one joined entity, maybe breaking that connection weakens it, or perhaps luring it onto consecrated ground into a magical trap, hoping it self-destructs somehow. But honestly, the main feeling you get is that it's probably not something you kill in the conventional sense. It's more likely something you banish or seal away.
Like getting the Mither of the Sea involved again.
Exactly. Invoking her power, the power that confines it in summer, seems like the most plausible way to actually stop it for good, according to the lore.
Okay, let's just recap the sheer horror here for a second. Skinless horse-human hybrid. Check. Toxic breath causing plague and famine. Check. Burning evil eye. Check. A true nightmare creature from Orkney. And yet, the ultimate kryptonite. A puddle or a rain shower.
It's an incredible contrast, isn't it? This ultimate demon of the Isles, felled by H2O. But the image, the core horror of it, is so potent, so vividly etched in the folklore.
It really is. And this whole deep dive, it really makes you think about how cultures, especially in the past, dealt with fear, with the unknown.
Definitely. These incredibly vivid, often terrifying creatures, they weren't just stories. They were ways to explain real-world disasters, anxieties about nature, disease, survival. And the fact these stories last tells you how deep those fears run.
Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe for you listening. What are our modern monsters? What anxieties do our stories today reflect? You know, could you see the Nuckelavee, this bringer of blight and sickness? Could it be an ancient echo of our fears about environmental damage or pandemics?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah, it just makes you consider the enduring psychological power these old tales have, doesn't it? How they might still resonate, even if the monsters look different now.